I would have to say the pyramids, just the massive nature of the pyramids. Our farm in Kansas growing up was a small farm with 7 acres, and the base of the pyramid is 14 acres, and it's as high as the Washington Monument in D.C. It's just staggering in the size of the stones that had to be moved there. It was just, and the technology, the way stones were cut, it just was unbelievable.
Yeah. I think a high for me, great question, by the way. A high for me was just getting to see the whole lay of the land, from the north to the south. We went all the way down to the Aswan Dam, basically the border area of Sudan, and just seeing how much life is within a mile of either side of that Nile, and the rest of the entire country, west and east in the Sinai, is just nothing. So
I think they said 97% of the people live within
a
couple of miles of the Nile River.
It is literally life-giving. So that was cool to see just that whole.
And to put that in relationship with the Basalis and their ministry, and I think that was a big thing as well.
Right.
I think that although if you've been to Arab sections before, I think the amount of trash that was omnipresent in some of the towns we were in was staggering. If you haven't been exposed to that before, and it was also, maybe not a low, but it was interesting how they provided security for us everywhere we went. Tim was kind of a roaming maverick, and he would go out and explore in some of the little towns, and they always sent a security guard with him to trail him just to make sure he didn't get into any kind of trouble with the locals. So that was interesting, but and they also talked about the Arab Spring. They're still recovering from, I think, the Arab Spring that happened back in 2012-13. So there are some problems in the country, but I think they're trying to remedy that. And also, it was interesting that the tourist industry is number one as far as their economy. And so I think they don't want to do anything to mess up the tourist industry.
Right, and number two to that is the Suez Canal, which has been shut down for how long now because of the Houthis and Yemen. All of the public commercial shipping traffic has been shut down, so they're not getting hardly any money at all from the Suez Canal. So the tourist industry is really heavy. I think they sent the security guards to protect their investments, not to necessarily keep me out of trouble or anybody, but it was interesting. I think a low for me also was just how poverty stricken the whole land of Egypt was. When I think of Egypt before I went, I think of great wealth, gold, mummies, ancient artifacts, one of the oldest countries in the world, and the history's there. And then you get there, and it's almost worse than any other Middle Eastern country I've been to. They're just poverty. I mean, Cairo itself, the largest of the cities, was already bad, and so it just got worse from there. So that was eye-opening.
But there were a few areas of Cairo that were very not the tourist
Right.
areas, but by and large, a lot of the housing was run down, I would say.
Yeah, trash on the roofs.
Yeah,
dust
big time.
everywhere.
Dust was omnipresent.
Yeah.
I think it was great in that whenever you go somewhere you've never been, it locks in the geography. A lot of the terms we read about, it was now I can put a picture to some of these titles like Luxor and Thebes and Memphis and Heliopolis, and just relating a lot of what we saw to the Bible stories, I think was amazing. You know, if you go back and ask who was the Pharaoh of Joseph, who was the Pharaoh of the Exodus, if you go back and look at it pretty close, you can make some pretty good correlations, and I thought that was exciting.
Yeah. I also think overall it was just great to kind of transform my perspective by transforming my locality and and saying, okay, well, what are the Basalis doing there? How can we be a better service to them? How can I pray for them better? And seeing the refugee crisis from Sudan, seeing the people that they get to minister to. I've always been fascinated growing up with the Indiana Jones, the treasure, the Rolling Stone, the booby traps of Egypt, all of these different things of the history of that, but now getting to see the other side of Egypt and just the tumultuous culture that is Egypt, that literally just flows with the Nile and is so controlled by that, and all of the thousands of years of people that have conquered, and then to tie that, like you said, Larry, into Scripture and see that it just makes it come more alive. So I think one of the cool things we talked about was Potiphar in Joseph's day. He's mentioned in Scripture as Potiphar the Egyptian. Potiphar the Egyptian. Nobody else has mentioned so-and-so the Egyptian, but Potiphar is mentioned, Potiphar the Egyptian, and I just would read right over that. But now, understanding the history and the group of people that came from the north down and took over Egypt and pushed the actual Egyptians south.
The Hyksos.
The Hyksos. It makes sense that the Hyksos were the ruling people during Joseph's time there, and why they would have treated him so well, because actual Egyptians looked down on shepherds, and are the lowest of the low are the shepherds, but the Hyksos people are shepherds themselves. And so when Joseph's family came, they didn't just if they were real Egyptians, they didn't just give him dirt land, they gave him the best of the land for the shepherds. And so it just, that kind of stuff ties it together.
And they made Joseph in charge of the flock.
Right, Joseph's in charge of all of these flocks, the Hyksos flock. Everybody's flocks there in his family. So it's not true Egyptians that would have done that. So just kind of tying all that in is cool. So
I think the other thing was just seeing Nathan in his element. Over the years, Ruth and I have tried to visit every missionary on site, and we didn't make 5 or 6 probably, but this was fun to be able to do that. And you're kind of a world traveler as well, so I'm sure you'll accomplish that in your lifetime. But just seeing the quality individual, this is a guy that could have done anything. He was a veterinarian, his wife is a pharmacist, and they gave all that up to be in ministry, and I think like 22 pastors come from southern Egypt and Sudan once a month to be trained by him, and in ministry, and the refugee ministry, and the vocational schools, and the education that they provide. It's just to see his heart for service. And plus his family, he's got a great family, got 3 great kids, and I think it was just very, very exciting to see him in his element.
Yeah, there's a lot of joy that you could sense from their family, even though they're working hand in hand with such obvious corruption and obvious poverty.
And persecution.
But they exuded Christ, and that was just wonderful, blessed, and refreshing.
And I thought it was interesting that I think they said somewhere between 15 and 20% of the country is Christian, albeit that is mainly Coptic, but that was far more than I had expected.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting land, is the land of Egypt. From Christ fleeing there as a child with his parents when he's first born, to all of the Romans, to Joseph and Moses, and Egypt and Israel, and our Bible and our world have been tied to the hip from time immemorial. Thanks for watching. What follows is a brief overview of some of the events that have led to the current state of affairs in Egypt. After a brief introduction and setting of the stage, you will be greeted by light and fun and brightness and goodness of a scenic and spectacular Nile River cruise and excursions into tombs and temples from one end of the country to the other. Afterwards, if you can stay with me this long, you will be confronted with the reality that is Egypt. The brief videos and pictures I documented in the in-between times of light and dark. Please do not feel in any way the need to watch any of the rest of this video. The video capture you just finished summarizes the trip well.
Over a decade ago, the country fell to the Muslim Brotherhood. A military coup ensued, and military officer Abdel Fattah el-Sisi took over as president. The terms of office were changed, and he has been reigning ever since. While some say the country has made a comeback, the evidence speaks otherwise. The expectation and purpose of the remaining length of this documentary is to both preserve in our own minds our journey, but to also showcase the stark contrast, the dichotomy that is Egypt. On the one side, thousands of years of incredible history of almost unimaginable wealth, advancements, culture, and power. On the other side, thousands of years of incredible devastation, corruption, darkness, and unspeakable poverty. This is, however, my own impression from a limited experience in country, but certainly not my own opinion, or even the minority opinion. It was a blessing to have been able to meet with, break bread with, and pray with our brothers and sisters in country who really have the ground truth and reality of what is going on around them and how God is working among and through them. In one sense, this has always been Egypt, a nexus from the rich and fertile highlands to the south to the economic, militaristic, and political avenues of the sea and land to the north. Think of the time of Joseph, sold into slavery by his brothers to large and regularly traveling caravans to and from this great land. Both a refuge and safe haven, think of Joseph's own family coming, the story of Jesus' birth, Mark the disciple leaving Paul and Barnabas and supposedly coming here to start the Coptic Christians. And yet, as ever-changing as the Nile and its annual floods, was also a land of constant change and war. Almost exclusively, the many depictions found etched into stone on high monuments or low tombs are stories of great conflict. This was a place that housed and fed millions during great famines in the surrounding lands. This was also a place that medically, scientifically, and artistically would come to inspire so much of what we know today in film and literature. This is a land of many nationalities, beliefs, and cultural ways of life. But underlining it all, and especially the further away you get from the life-giving waters of the Nile, a place just as desolate, hard, and resilient as the people themselves that work this land. I would describe Egypt as the keffiyeh I picked up while there. Partly white, representing the constant sun and the most noble of ancient continents and countries we can point to, and partly red, representing the constant struggle for survival that people here have known for eons. Checkered like their past, all of our pasts, but still able to provide shelter from the cruelty of the high sun or protection against the biting sands and dust that seems to never cease, or warmth in the cool of the evenings. This is Egypt. As a Christian, academically, my mind can understand the struggle of the people, and my scriptures help me to frame the absolute contrast of what I see here, of great darkness, but also of a greater light. But as a follower of Jesus Christ, the hurt of my heart for these people, especially his people, my fellow brothers and sisters that know and follow him, this hurt of my heart is great. It was good for me to come here. It was good for me to witness the reality, to be forced to confront the spiritual warfare and oppression that is all around me. I think of Moses, partaker of and witness to incredible wealth and power here, and yet called by Yahweh to confront the reality of it all, to not lavish in his own human adoption by the Pharaoh and his own power and prestige, but to recognize his true identity, a child of God, a higher citizenship, and to shepherd God's people instead. I am incredibly thankful to the Hartmans for their opportunity to have come, to my wife who signed off on this trip, to my children and extended family and friends who stepped in to fill the void I left at that time. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to have been blessed with the wealth of this trip. Clean water, incredible food, security teams, a safe place to sleep. But my heart goes back to God, who, working through Moses, shepherded his people into a better way. It's interesting, isn't it? Moses and his circles all lived in physical wealth. Even the Israelites, while slaves, had food and a place to sleep and a purpose in their work and community. The Nile Delta region, unlike today, was an incredibly fertile and fruitful place, a lush place with fresh water and green in abundance. And yet spiritually, they were in an absolute desert. Up to 430 years, there was no intercessor between God and his people. And when he sent them Moses, God called them into a physical desert, limited food, limited shelter, seemingly aimless in purpose, and yet an absolute oasis of spiritual nourishment, a relationship again with their God, an intercessor on their behalf, and still they cried out for the land of Egypt that they had been delivered from. This is Egypt, a land of constant change, constant struggle, absolute corruption that seduces even God's own chosen. And while we can look out the right side of the air-conditioned tour bus and see the gleaming pyramids or the green riverbanks of the Nile and the waters lapping against the footsteps to some great temple, we have but to get a little closer, shift our gaze slightly to the left, and countless young, dejected, and purposeless men line the streets, refugees, some refugees in their own land. A shoeless toddler climbs out from under the shade of a broken-down car to watch us go by. A completely black-covered woman dart in and out of alleyways in the midday hot sun. Dogs fight over a scrap they found atop a trash heap too big to be cared about anymore. Since time immemorial, Egypt has been one matchstick away from chaos. A mindset of scarcity drives fear, selfishness, and corruption that is viewed differently here, framed differently here. The darkness is as palpable as the grit and grime and dust that plagues this land. This, not the cold water bottles I'm handed, or the smiles from the guides, or the reassurances from the guards as they look at me, pat their weapon at their side, and nod that it's okay for me to keep walking. No, this great darkness, this is Egypt.
The scars left by one of the deadliest days of violence in Egypt, clear. And the heat has not gone out of the situation. Yesterday, hundreds were killed or injured, many shot by security forces. Across the day, the violence spread across the country. To Alexandria, to the Nile Delta, and to the town of Sogar. This was one of many churches burnt by Muslim Brotherhood supporters. Some say Christians supported the coup which ousted President Morsi. An underlying fear, a tension over what today and the coming days bring.
The Muslim Brotherhood has condemned a car bomb attack at a security compound in Egypt's Nile Delta that's killed at least 14 people and injured more than 100 others. But ex-Premier Mohamed Morsi's group has been blamed for the blast in the city of Mansoura by a spokesman for the military-backed government. Most of the casualties were police officers. Suicide attacks on security forces have multiplied since the army ousted Morsi in July amid mass unrest against his rule. No one has claimed responsibility for the bombing, in which the death toll's expected to rise.
After a day of violence in Egypt, which left more than 100 people dead, tensions continued into the night in the capital, Cairo. Security forces seen here surrounding a mosque as objects are thrown through a doorway. Supporters of ousted Islamist President Mohamed Morsi had called for a day of rage to denounce a crackdown by the army-backed government. They got a bloodbath. As night fell in Suez, gunshots echoed across the city. At least 6 people were killed here on Friday. Earlier in the day, gunfire also rang out in Cairo. The army deployed dozens of armoured vehicles, with the Interior Ministry saying it would use live ammunition against anyone threatening public buildings. The authorities appear set on ending weeks of unrest following the toppling of Morsi last month. But the Muslim Brotherhood is showing no signs of backing down. It's now calling for a week of protests starting today.
Many analysts see little or no chances of a political deal to stabilize this nation in turmoil.
On a December day in 2010, a produce vendor in Tunisia stood in front of a government office and set himself on fire, killing himself. His desperate actions helped spark a revolutionary uprising that has come to be known as the Arab Spring. While the uprising across the Middle East and North Africa did not take place during a specific calendar season, they were commonly referred to as the Arab Spring, an allusion to the so-called Prague Spring, a 1968 democratic revolution in Czechoslovakia. The Arab Spring timeline began in Tunisia, a country that had been under the allegedly corrupt and authoritarian rule of President Zayn al-Abidine Ben Ali for more than 2 decades. On December 17, 2010, a working-class vendor named Mohamed Bouazizi was approached by Tunisian authorities about his unlicensed cart. He offered to pay a fine, but instead his vegetables were confiscated, and he was publicly humiliated by the police. Afterwards, to add insult to injury, local officials refused to hear his complaints of harassment. In a show of protest, Bouazizi stood in front of the local governor's office and set himself on fire. He died from his injuries on January 4th. Bouazizi became a martyr who inspired others who were suffering from unemployment at the hands of a corrupt government. His death sparked a Tunisian revolution in which protesters armed themselves not only with signs, but with cell phones, allowing the protest to spread at social media speed. On January 11th, a week after Bouazizi's death, Tunisia's government fell apart, and the disgraced president Ben Ali fled the country. The videos of the successful uprising shared via social media raised global awareness of the protests themselves. State-run news organizations were barely able to keep up. The speed and success of the protest inspired others across the region. Throughout January, protests erupted in Algeria, Jordan, and Oman. By January 25th, the movement reached Egypt, followed by Syria, Yemen, Iraq, Libya, and several other countries. On February 11th, Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak stepped down, and by the end of the year, Yemen's government was overthrown, as was Libya's, ending the dictatorship and the life of their leader, Muammar Gaddafi, who was captured and killed by Libyan rebel militia. While some of the Arab Spring protests did result in regime changes, not all of them brought about positive change for the working-class people like Mohamed Bouazizi. In some cases, the uprisings were co-opted by religious extremists like ISIS, who embraced the revolt against secular Arab regimes for their own agenda. As a result, when governments toppled in places like Syria and Iraq, rebel groups stepped in to fill the void, using strong-arm tactics and even terrorism. In Syria, civil war has resulted in the deaths of some 500,000 people, stoking the fires of unrest. Along with political instability and economic stagnation in neighboring countries, the Syrian civil war has also led to a massive refugee crisis in the region. While the Arab Spring revealed how fast a revolution fueled by technology could unfold, it also once again proved how complicated and unpredictable revolutions can be.
Egypt's first democratically elected president was overthrown, the constitution suspended, politicians arrested, and what followed was a massacre of over 1,000 people. Here's what unfolded in the 2013 coup in Egypt. In June 2012, Mohamed Morsi came to power after a narrow margin victory, making him the North African nation's first president to be elected by the people. And while his election was celebrated by many as a step forward for the country's democracy, not everybody was happy to see a member of the Muslim Brotherhood as their leader. In his time in office, he was immediately accused of mishandling the economy and failing to deliver on his promises, and was subjected to an institutional onslaught and propaganda campaign that undermined him at every turn. And after spending just a year in office, at the end of June 2013, anti-government protests started taking place, while thousands of others filled the streets in support of the president. And after clashes and an escalation of tensions, on July 3, 2013, this happened.
إلا أن خطاب السيد الرئيس ليلة أمس وقبل انتهاء مهلة 48 ساعة جاء بما لا يلبي ويتوافق مع مطالب جموع الشعب.
That was Sisi's way of telling the Egyptian people that the military had taken over the country and detained the president. One side was celebrating the ouster of President Morsi, while his supporters were distraught. Those who wanted the president to be released and reinstated to power vowed to protest until that happened. But to break up the protest camps, on August 14, 2013, the military attacked the demonstrators using tear gas, rubber-coated steel bullets and live ammunition, killing over 1,000 people in just 10 hours. That is now known as the Rubber Massacre. And even though Sisi said the military had no interest in politics and was only ousting the president because he had failed to fulfill the hope for a national consensus, during the years that followed, he only contradicted his words. The Egyptian military's interference in politics cast a looming shadow over the revolution and the nation's long-sought dream for a civilian democracy. As for Mohamed Morsi, he spent years locked up in prison cells until he collapsed and died during a court hearing in June 2019.
You don't need first class to experience true luxury. Metal. What are we having, Larry? What's for dinner?
Zucchini.
Ah, the zucchini. And I'm having first class. Not really, but it feels like it. Thanks, Lufthansa. Beautiful room. How'd you sleep last night, Larry?
Marvelous.
Marvelous. Beautiful room here in the Sofitel, downtown Nile. Let's go check out the outside. Dusty. Warming up. That's the Canadian embassy there. And the Nile. And we're looking at an island actually, and then the other part of the Nile on the other side. If you could see through the smog or the dust, you would see the pyramids that direction out in Giza. And this is the city. It actually doesn't look any different than most other Middle East cities I've seen. Just lots of dust and trash and dirt and grime. All the rooftops are filled with just trash and dust and dirt. And if you could keep seeing in the smog of the city farther and farther away, but you can tell how smoggy it gets. Some chop shop action going on down there. And the Nile again. When you were flying in, you could see how wide the city is. I mean, it just goes on forever and ever and ever on either side of the Nile here. I'm looking north, is this direction here. You can see that bridge off in the distance. And it empties out into the Mediterranean up there. Israel this direction, the sun is rising over here. The pyramids off to the west out there. Cairo International Airport back here on the east, Alexandria. And we are gonna head out to Giza and the temple, the Saqqara pyramids, or however you say that. And then we're gonna head south down to Luxor and Aswan. Let's start the day. Real honeycomb We've got a whole spread of nuts right here. Dates, fruits, veggies. A quick overview here. We're in Africa, northeastern Africa. You can see South Sudan, Ethiopia, where the Blue Nile begins, and the White Nile in the Sudan, actually further down here in Lake Victoria in Uganda. And the White Nile and the Blue Nile meet up. They come through Khartoum, which is the capital of Sudan now, or what used to be Northern Sudan. And they meet up right here at the Aswan Dam and form the Great Nile. They actually physically meet up a little bit before that, but the dam that they built back in the late 60s and 70s has created this lake now, this man-made lake, Lake Nasser. And it has supposedly over hundreds of thousands of crocodiles in it, and that's where they stay. They don't cross the dam. The dam is the largest in the world here at Aswan, 3 miles long and 1 mile wide, if you can believe that. It is a massive, massive feat of engineering and holds back the Great Nile, the longest river or largest river in the world. You're looking at all of these little islands here. Tons of history, tons of history. Elephantine Island is where some Jews escaped to and some Christians back in the day, so that's definitely worth looking into on your own. As you continue north or downriver here, you'll see Aswan is actually quite a large city, probably second largest after Cairo, I'm not sure, but there's a huge university there, and they had to remove a bunch of the temples and things that were going to be flooded by the creation of Lake Nasser down into the rest of the Nubian region of southern Egypt. Nubia is where all the gold came from, if you remember your scripture, and the Ethiopians and the Nubians, there's a lot of, we can talk about that later as this video continues. Okay, we'll do research on that later. Okay, back up here to Cairo, the west side of Cairo is the necropolis. This is where we visited Saqqara, one of the oldest pyramids in the world ever discovered. We went underneath, which was pretty amazing. And then, of course, the Great Pyramids of Giza that everybody knows and has magnets of. You can see just from the satellite view how desolate this is, and it's right across from the Nile. Everything dies off. The Nile does not permeate well. Everything that is green has been artificially done through, or man-made done through aquifers or irrigation. And then this is the Greater Nile Delta. It is still very much green. However, because of the dam that controls the flooding, it protects the flooding that used to happen every year. It also does not get the same silt content, and so the Mediterranean has been devastating the shoreline up there near Alexandria. Of course, the Suez Canal goes through the Gulf of Suez there. Much merchant traffic has been ceased because of the pirates further south, and so they're losing a lot of money there, but they also control Egypt, the western half of the Sinai Peninsula as well, which provides them a economic and military buffer from the chaos of Gaza and the Palestinians. Down here is Luxor, what they call Luxor now, which used to be called Thebes. And on the west bank is the Valley of Kings, also the Valley of Queens. I don't know how many tombs they found here, but it's just a beautiful job they've done lighting it up at night. Across from the Valley of Queens, there's this old road that goes straight across to the east side of the Nile, Luxor or Old Thebes, and the largest religious complex in the world, or the Temple of Karnak. So the Karnak Temple complex, you can just see with all of the cities all around, has this huge, beautiful road called the road or the street or the festival pathway of the Sphinxes. It runs 1.7 miles long from the north of Karnak, from Karnak here, down to another temple that we'll see as this map continues. And they found over 1,000 sphinxes lining this alley of the sphinxes. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And all of this was flooded. All of this because of that annual flooding from the delta, from the Nile. Hundreds and hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, of mud and silt had flooded and covered all of these complexes, and people would just build on top and build on top and build on top. And so as they do construction, as they create a new project, they dig further down and they realize, wow, there's all this history still under here. And you can see the modern roads that go well over the top of this Valley of the Sphinxes. As a matter of fact, further on in the video here, you'll see a video of us walking a modern road over top the road, the valley of the alley of the Sphinxes here. So quite a separation of the silt and mud that just kind of came in and flooded this whole region. And at one time, the Nile would have been, the bank of the Nile would have been right along here. So boats would have pulled up, the only way to travel up and down the Nile, and would have visited the temples here. So you'll see some video footage of our exploration of these temples and streets later on in the video, but just an incredible complex. The pillars right there that you see are just an amazing sight to behold in person. Very beautiful, still well preserved, and of course throughout the years, as different nationalities have come in to do excavations, especially much earlier on in our history, we're talking 1800s, people like the French have taken obelisks and different things for their own museums, and so you'll see a lot of those around as well. This is the Colosseum of Memnon, which is a beautiful still standing structure that you'll see in the video later as well. Valley of the Queens, as mentioned, that Larry and I made it up to, and then of course the Valley of the Kings, and different tombs that we were blessed to explore, as well as one couple that I ran off to do on my own that I may include a video of. So going further on the river here, the Edfu Temple, the Kam Ombo Temple, you'll see videos of those, and then back down to Aswan. There's that 90-degree part of the river there, which is an interesting part because the only granite that people have built and used to build came from further south there near Aswan, and then that 90-degree angle has been there forever. And the temple to Sobek, the crocodile god, is built right there where all of the crocodiles used to congregate as well, because it's slow-moving right angle river. So it's a funny thing to witness. All right, let's check out the rest of the video.
Cool. Oh my God. Speak for yourself.
Can you imagine discovering this for the first time, not knowing if this is a trap wall or if there's booby traps? That looks... I wonder why they're shoring that up. Into the rose granite. Huh. What's interesting about all this granite and the corners that they filled in are all the angles have these sort of door hinge markings where they would have blocked things off. And on each of the walls, just amazing artistry and hieroglyphs sort of protecting both sides here. And then you break out, it's all the way up the wall. All the way up the wall again. You can see the seam, very heavy, where it came in and marked. It's a different kind of stone. Broken up. know if you can see, there's some hieroglyphs on the wall etched into the side of this tomb in here. All right. There it is, the outside.
Karnak to the right hand side and Luxor to the left hand side.
That old road.
By the Avenue of Sphinxes.
The Avenue of Sphinxes.
This is the Avenue of Sphinxes, the original one. The pavement is originally
The old road.
We have lost several sphinxes. We have lost several sphinxes because the whole avenue was under the streets and the buildings.
The jewel.
Shape on the Nile out of 410.
Here we are on the Viking Sobek. Let me give you the grand tour. Beautiful window view, couch and table, 2 beds, and who do we have over here, Larry? Look who it is! Look who showed up! If it isn't Flat Ruth to keep Larry company at night, I'm a poor bedmate. And the little TV and storage and hangers in the hallway. And the bathroom and the shower. So fancy. And the safe, Larry wants me to point out. Very nice. And it comes with 2 robes, his and his. It's perfect. Well, should we go to lunch? Let's go check it out. Where are we?
We are on the Nile.
We're in denial.
We are on the jewel of the Nile.
The jewel of the Nile. This is the galley. Welcome to the top deck of the Viking Sobek, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. We are in port, right on the Nile. The beautiful Nile River. We are here in Luxor, almost directly across the west bank of Luxor, the Nile, and the Valley of the Kings. They believe that this landmass appeared like a natural pyramid, which apparently made it holy or sacred, and so they buried a lot of their kings out there. And we are going to go down and look at some of the decks. So we're up on the sun deck now and coming down to the aquavit. Let's check it out. Automatic doors. This is the restaurant inside, very beautiful. And I lost Larry. Come out here. Another lounge. An eating area. And
I don't think this is one of those pools you swim against the current.
we found Larry observing the pool. What do you think, Larry?
I think it will be a hot day in the sun.
This pool looks like it may not fit all of us. But I bet it's refreshing. I bet the whole point of this is to sit in here and stay cool. It looks like it's got a nice bench to sit there, and you can observe the Nile as it goes by. Not a swimming pool, a lounging pool. The aft end of the ship, there's a shower, and we'll go inside. And we are on deck 4. Automatic doors, bathrooms, solar output. There's a library over there, a business center over there, the bar and lounge. There's the shop down on deck 3, and the main restaurant. Some of the library books. Let's go down and check out deck 3. All right. Staterooms.
Channeling your inner Arab.
I'm trying, yeah. Down to deck 2, which is how you board the ship. More staterooms, front desk. Coffee and tea, and donuts and coffee. Oh, there you go out. And all one go down to our room. And deck 1. You can see there's an elevator for the whole thing, and we'll go down here. Egyptian photographs on either side. And we are in room 100.
I forgot to say on floor 2, to the entrance there, see the coffee bar?
Yeah, I just noticed
Did
it.
you get the cookies?
I saw cookies up there. I didn't grab one.
Oh, they had chocolate because I knew what.
Chocolate cookies. Beautiful bathroom. Say no more. Time to unpack.
Right. Hey.
¿Cómo vas viendo el cambio de
Hola, Istanbul.
All roads lead to Rome, but in this case, all roads in Luxor lead from the Karnak Temple, the largest religious complex in the world, at that end, down what they call the Avenue of Sphinxes, along this old road. Here's the old road. More Sphinxes, all the way to the Luxor Temple. And the Luxor Temple was occupied by Romans as well as Christians, probably a few others as well. Very beautiful, very cool. For context, the Nile is right here, and when they found it, this place was covered all the way up to about here in mud and junk and from flooding from the Nile. So they've had a lot of digging out to do. What an incredible piece of history, though. They've dug all this all the way down to Karnak, which is several miles that direction. All right. Let's go get some dinner, Larry. Here's the wild animals of the Nile. We're playing wild animal bingo, and the first wild animal you see, a donkey, just staying in the shade, or he's stuck down there. Who really knows? Burnt. It's like a magnifying glass.
Good. My eyes are sparkling. Language. She knew she was serious. But all culture class on
Hello.
Martin Luther King's birthday. They haven't cleaned that up yet. The lady was just there. You might want to clean it.
All right.
A water buffalo. Some of the wildlife you can find along the Nile include the white egret, the wild donkey. No, he's not wild. Sugarcane is a popular crop here. The Nile perch is quite a large fish here. They have some of the landscape that goes by. I guess the Nile perch can get up to 175 pounds, which is crazy to think about. Sailing on the Nile River. The beautiful Nile River. We are traveling north, which is actually downriver. There are many rivers that flow from south to north, but the Nile River is the longest river in the world and flows from south to north. The locals are burning the roots of the sugar cane, which helps to restore nutrients to the soil. There's a lot of wildlife we've seen and a lot of people along the shorelines. Pretty exciting. Right. Staying cool in the water. Water buffalo style.
I'm sure the wind has gotten, because we're actually moving, but the water's really calm.
Right. No. Just getting a... here in Egypt, they don't finish the roofs of their buildings because they don't have to pay taxes, so everything looks unfinished. They also highly value pigeons, so they build these little pigeon homes, just little roofs full of holes that they can collect and then eat as an aphrodisiac. Very cool.
That's what he needs right now.
But you have to find somebody that's qualified.
It's the doctor said you put some down when you're walking and that muscles will be working. And it has come down a lot. Oh, he gives me a fly. Oh my God. Sorry about that. Well, if these steps are halfway melted, you know how hot it is in the summer, don't you? You have to be kidding me. Imagine that being your job. Yeah.
Room is a room.
You walk on the side. It's...
How much time did it take to build the temple? 8 years. Add the decoration, 25 years. So all in all, 33 years.
What's that?
Oh, it's just incredible. Here we are. Look at the colors in some of these chambers. Can you see that up there? Reds and blues and yellows that have maintained over thousands of years. We've got one more up top. And all the colors. Look at the colors up in this room here. Look right there. Wow. You'll notice some of the chips. Some of the gods are chipped. Our guide was telling us that the corrupt priests would allow people to come in that were having problems, that were tormented by these gods. And they could pay to chip off and deface these gods. I don't know how true that is or if that's the guide's opinion, but that is what we got. And one more. And this one.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Electric.
Ah, that's what they say, huh?
Electric.
Yeah, it sure looks like that.
Where from?
Or maybe a snake.
Snake?
Yeah.
Is lotus.
Yeah, they say electric there. I'll take a old Coptic church over here. We'll go inside. Here we are standing in front of the Temple of Dendera, and this area was the basilica, supposedly. I am no expert, just what they told me. Built in the 5th century AD. You can see the Coptic cross and the archway. The Romans came in here. There's the eagle, another cross. And then also the Greeks, I think. I don't know. I'm just here to film it. But this is what our guide did not want to show us, was the church. He wanted to show us the Egyptian, very proud of his Egyptian roots, and the Islamic, very proud of his Muslim, Islamic roots, but did not want to come into the Coptic church, which is unfortunate, but I did get a picture of the information out front and what the experts think this area was used for. Right next door, this massive building with a Corinthian style pillars, although there's the Egyptian hieroglyphs on the front and supposedly stalks of papyrus up here, and you see the relief of one of the Egyptian gods of, I think, laughter or something. I don't know. But this was an old hospital that they had to build per the temple guidelines so that people could come in and get help. All right, we'll look at one more and go back to the front here. You can see this is just ruins everywhere. All the old mud bricks still sloughing off. Still active dig sites. This was all covered by the Nile up to the wall there, with just a part of the temple sticking out. And let's go take a look at the front of the sign here. We can read about the Christianity portion right here. So the basilica is where we just were. Down here, I'm currently standing right there. Okay, you can pause the video to read any of that if it's of interest, and we'll make our way out.
Every group is having 10 minutes.
Thank you.
After you're done, upstairs and our music is out.
Go ahead.
Have a nice time.
Thank you. Did you get the clothes?
Yes. If you want.
Are you at the beginning or at the end?
Here we go into the royal tomb of Seti the First, one of the most notorious tombs because of the construction, architecture, and also the colors that they found are still so vivid. So take a look at the colors as we go through. So this was the first entrance that they had to cross. You see the cartouche, and the pit goes all the way down and down. They had to cross this Indiana Jones style, and then we will go through the first one here. You notice the ceiling and the same star pattern. Look at these colors. 4 pillars. The snakes. And we will go down. There's, what do we see here? Bull worship, not unusual. Maybe where the Israelites got the idea after Moses was not returning from the top of the mountain. They said we should create ourselves a god like we had in Egypt, maybe. Just an idea. Look at these colors. And closed for visitors. You see the brick on the outside for the actual tomb and sarcophagus. Seti the First. Look at the snake right here, depicted in its length. Incredible. Get it close above that. Why do you think there are so many curves? Why is that so long? It's the longest snake in the tomb. We will let you decide, dear viewer. Aside from this one here, you'll notice one more. Look how long this one is. Incredible. Can you imagine digging all this out, only to fall in a pit, or to find a false wall that you think just goes straight ahead, and then the wall breaks through. And it's another tunnel into another tomb and entrance over there. You'd have to lift this up to get underneath. So can you see the etched image of the body inside?
这是里面是吗？
底下是关口内部，这是上盖。
Hi. Thank you. Here we are in Ramses the Ninth. Famous, so they say, because the most articulate art was done on the outside, working in, as opposed to most tombs where the beautiful art is done on the inside of the sarcophagus in the holy room, or the tomb itself, and then working out. This one has people that are upside down, people that are sideways, people sideways in cartouches, people that are beheaded, people that are held as prisoners. There's all these entrances off to the side, which again makes you wonder how many false walls did they have to dig through before they realized it punched through here. But just look at the color. It's amazing. And again, this is unusual in that it's so ornate right here at the entrance. And as you go in, it becomes less and less. Very interesting. And you see what she's pouring on top of the head there. Bee of the harvest. They are depicted. You see the sideways there. Here's the long snakes, which we've seen before. But again, the sideways gods here and the upside down gods. Maybe life and death.
The beard.
Yeah.
What was it, man versus God? What was the...
Yeah, one is curved and one is straight.
So is that a god?
I don't know.
These guys are sideways.
I was getting worried about you. I thought maybe you hit the 12th gate and they took your heart.
What exactly are they doing? We'll go down this wall and then we'll come back and look at that wall there. Look at this, it's just incredible color. Sideways. You see the rays coming down on the side and the upside down. The arrows with the blood on the snake's head. What does it all mean? Larry? What do you think?
Awesome. Awesome.
Look at this. Pretty incredible to be here.
Yeah.
You see the leopard skin with the claws.
You think it looks like he has hair, but it's like he has that braid.
Right. The princes or Moses sprayed on the side denoting royalty. Yeah. Here we go. Thank you. Okay, you see this Greek right here? This is why it's important, this one. Right on the inside is where the Christians came. You see the Greek there? Right here? So it's done as a church. See the maybe disciples? Okay. This is where the Christians they came in and they hid in here for their life, and they lived. And our guide was kind enough to point out that all of the Egyptian paintings were not desecrated by the Christians. Any desecration you see was done after the fact, but when the Christians came in and they lived here in hiding, they took good care of this tomb, and they lived at the mouth of the tomb there. And I don't think they got much farther inside. I don't remember if he said it was closed, and they never dug in, but definitely at the beginning there where you saw. Now we got to make it to the Valley of the Vultures. Let's do it. Here we are in Howard Carter's house that has been turned into a museum.
If you open that, you can.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Little mini fridge?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Really is.
For those of you interested in Howard Carter, I'm gonna sneak by in front of you guys real quick. Not at all. Remember to pause the video at any point to read what you want to read. Here we are at the Howard Carter House, right at the foothills of the Valley of the Kings. The natural pyramid, along with the one that's behind there. And what's interesting is this highway goes in to the park that you can watch in my other video. What's interesting is there are still hundreds, if not thousands, of random open caves, networks of holes, rocks that have slid down. I mean, even just right off the highway here, rocks that have slid down, covering entrances. This might be hard to see in the video, but right above houses, there's holes right here on the cliffside. I mean, you could take a shovel and dig down under anything and find a random entrance into something. They've obviously been scoured for hundreds, if not thousands of years by grave robbers and thieves and archaeologists and tourists, goat herders. Supposedly Tutankhamun's tomb was discovered by Howard Carter and a donkey that tripped. The cart fell over into the hole. So, who knows? But you're right on the edge of the town of Luxor on the west bank, the Valley of the Dead, or the necropolis, or the ancient city of Thebes. You see the city, or the town, I guess, population over there. Dogs everywhere, random people everywhere, and random holes everywhere. Random holes into the sides of mountains that go into who knows what, but probably cobras. I don't know. That probably keeps people like me out. Who knows? But this is just the foothills. There were a lot of people buried here apparently that were maybe the workers or the architects, and then the actual royalty buried farther up the road there at the park that you can watch in my other video. Amazing. Pretty incredible to think that all of this, you could walk and trip into something and fall into a tomb. Amazing.
I'm so sorry. Oh, and I just ate that one. Were you donated to me?
Yeah, right.
Uh-huh.
Just a couple of minutes here, ladies and gentlemen, please.
A lot of cities. We did a circle.
We're right here, just 2 minutes here. We are allowed to get to one terrace, which is the middle terrace. Forget about the upper terrace, there is nothing except for a very corrupt. as you all know, against that invader called Pharaoh or Pharaoh. So no way to write down the name of Moses in hieroglyphs, but we might find the name of Moses in several other hieroglyphic, or not hieroglyphic, papyrus rolls, but not using the hieroglyphic script, because the hieroglyphic script was the holy script of ancient Egypt. Maybe in the script of the common script.
Tama gdi kamen je chlobak vela v sebete vidna. A gdje od kamen je tam tunel, который под землей 62 метра, про который вам рассказываю. Ясно? Да, он или чаще под землей 62 метра. Самое главное, мои. Самое главное. Сейчас по пути к храму, как будет с левой стороны в горе гробницы.
We are going through one of the locks. You see on both sides here. As we head upriver, south, upriver, toward the Aswan Dam. We are in one of the locks.
Are there two sets of locks?
I guess, yeah. It's pretty amazing. There's multiple boats here.
This is what we gain during the high water season. We are in the middle of the high water season, so we'll gain like maybe 2 to 3 feet more.
Let's look at some of these details here. Don't mind all the dogs. You can see at height level, that's the door, so you can tell how big people are. There's all of these carvings here. Then of course, the bigger ones, smiting their enemies. And then, there's more detail and writing, telling the story. In each of these columns, there's writings all the way down. And then you get to the top here, and even at the top, there's detailed writings all the way around that would have told you the story. Let's go. Larry seems to have attracted all of the dogs. Here we go. Up the Temple of Horus, which mirrors the Temple of Dendera. This is the Temple of Horus in Edfu, and if you saw my last video, it mirrors the Temple of Dendera in Cana, except in this case, it's locked. Of course, no rhyme or reason. I'm sure they have a good reason. Let's go explore some more. I want to show you the windows that are cut very precisely. This temple was not moved, although it was covered in mud and clay. There's a lot of really neat passages all the way around. And even more, you can see, would go underneath. This is where I was just at the top there, where it was cut. And we're gonna go into the Holy of Holies there, is what they call it, in a second. You can still see some of the color. If you notice her feet there, and she's in an arched form. all the way around with her hands. There's her face right there, sort of making almost a human cartouche around the story. And there is a greater story to that I do not remember. What's interesting, so I want you to see the windows on the outside here. The way that they engineered this was for the light. It's currently 9:30 in the morning. The light that's on the floor there is moving from the back of the temple up to the Holy of Holies. So here's the entrance to the temple here. And that light was moving all the way up to where it is right there. And there's the Holy of Holies. You see the light there? And then in the afternoon, the light from there will come back. Right now the light is coming from the morning, and the light will retreat out the temple, which is really cool. Neat engineering. Let's go check it out. Some more stuff. Here we are at Muhammad Ali's mosque, the greatest mosque in the Middle East outside of Turkey. Here is downtown Cairo. We're looking that way towards the pyramids, west, towards Giza. Over there is our hotel. We'll zoom in on, can't see much because of the smog. But it looks like an earthquake or a war zone. It's our impression of Cairo so far. All of the cities are just trash on top of the roofs, dust everywhere. Buildings are half built or half cracking down, and people still live there. It's pretty amazing, considering such a modern country and all of the tourism, how poor and impoverished the city of Cairo is.
O2. So the building itself, ladies and gentlemen, is an antique, more than 123 years old. And it was built, ladies and gentlemen, to house only 5,000 pieces. Those were the total pieces discovered in Egypt back in 1901-19.
Larry doing the Egyptian cotton tour, so he can purchase one for his wife. Maybe, who knows? What are you going to tell Ruth? You going to get her one?
So this is 100% pure Egyptian cotton. This is what we are famous for as Egyptians.
Here we are in the carpet manufacturer. Each loom has its own family. They're discipling their children to take over the family project. So you see the older brother or son there. Discipling. There's a family doing discipling. There's a family doing discipling. There's a big family down here doing discipling. Except for the youngest one over there just looking at it. Everybody else is practicing, learning everything. Pretty cool. They all come home from school supposedly and do that. You're not going to get one?
No, we are starting the construction of similar ones in a couple of years. One of them will be at Alexandria, the mermaid of the Mediterranean. Another one will be at Luxor, for sure. And the rest will be scattered all over the country. How many pieces we have so far? Masterpieces needed to be exhibited? 1 million masterpieces. So we need at least another.
Let's see what kind of vehicles come by the road. A van with an open door. Bikes with people with no helmets. Normal car. Normal car. Bikes with no helmets. Bikes, no helmets. Horse and buggy. People walking. A van with a door open. Little trucks. Motorcycle, scooters. Huh. Some of the life of downtown Luxor. Mike with the family. Another horse and buggy. Bicycle.
Hola.
That day the government said, I think you go to do. So why don't we have a name for our Yeah, let's have a name. I will give you some options and after argument, the party, the hero, the second one is a government. His mom, ISIS. What's Habibi mean? My dear. My very dear Habibi. Okay, we'll go for the vote after we vote.
Here we are in the Valley of the Kings. I am running up here to catch a couple more that I can get before the bus takes off. I'm just going to show you where we are. Right here, KV 45, closed, but straight down. We'll look up the names of these later. Undecorated KV 44, closed, padlocked. You can see the mountains here. From back at the beginning, you can see the perspective. They thought this place was holy or sacred because of the natural pyramid that the mountain made. If you can see the mountain top up there. And every little ravine here is something. And there is nobody out here. I mean, there's a few people, but it's pretty incredible. You can just hike around. There'll be some random Egyptian or Bedouin out here that will pop up behind a rock and want to charge you 10 Egyptian pounds, 20 cents, 25 cents to come and have a special tour. I would run up and check out all of these if I had time, but I've got to be back at the bus. I saw the main three, the very popular, well-decorated ones that I'll put in video format here. But I wanted to find Amenhotep II. His is pretty famous as possibly a candidate for the pharaoh of the Exodus. So this is number 28. Look how steep it just ascends, and it's currently being used as a trash pit right now by the Egyptians. And the park staff here, you see all the tourists back there at the main sites, but all of these other tombs desecrated with trash, locked, unkept. This is number 28. They're not very popular because they're small, but they're still an important part of our history, and but they're interested in the money of the really pretty ones. So it's unfortunate that you can't really come and enjoy, even from an archaeological standpoint or a historic standpoint, these different tombs, even though they're small. You can tell this wall is built up here. It's not designed for people to go in, although it's locked and, again, filled with trash. There's just so much history here, though. We'll go up. It looks like there's someone up here that might have gotten to visit one. So we'll try to run up here and check it out. Let's pause this for a second. All right. So there's a big one up there. This is Mentukapeshef. I don't know how to pronounce KV-19. Locked. Up the hill. Locked. Let's run up these stairs. This one might be open. Number 19. Let's check it out. Lots of climbing still. Oh, it's probably 89 degrees. Let's see. People. That's good. Hi. Thank you. It's okay. We're gonna go down. Tutmosis the Fourth. However you say. Hello.
Hello. I'll be long way.
Oh, yes, thank you. Long way. They said, if you can imagine digging and digging to uncover, and you have to pull all this dirt out, uphill, and then you come to your first trap, the ceiling. Beautiful. Oh, that is a long ways. It is very Indiana Jones. Who knows if there's not even something under? Oh, this looks very similar to Amenhotep II. Okay, we made it out. There's a goat trail. We will not follow that. I don't have a map of the Valley of the Kings. That would have been helpful. I think Amenhotep II is on the other side of this ridge over here. So I will not make it today. Unfortunately, I have 10 minutes before all of the very wealthy tourists that paid for this trip get angry. Maybe I can look up over this hill. If I run, it's only 90. It's 10:30 in the morning, 90 degrees. Let's see. Here's another fellow explorer. Okay. we come down this way here, I found the rest of the tourists. That's a good sign. All of these stairs and people hiding, they charge you a ticket to come into the main part of the park where all the people are up here. But if you wander off, you find all the other tombs with trash or gates. Ramses X, blocked, but not being used as trash. That's good. This one must be open with all the tourists. This is the one I did. This is Seti the First. And we're gonna keep looking. Oh, pause. I found it. KV35. See, if I have a map, I could just run here. Amenhotep II. You might look him up on YouTube. When they discovered his tomb, there were many other mummies buried in here as well, supposedly placed in here to protect from the grave robbers. More trash, number 49. But where there's a shelter, that means Chicago has been here, the US, and built shade. Amenhotep II. Here we are. Look at this. 18th dynasty, that fits the timeline. See the long snake for top. See the headless prisoners. Okay, look at the chamber. All the way down to another chamber, to another, off to the side. Pillars into the tomb, like the one we just were with the 6 pillars. Chamber on the side, chamber on the side. This is where we came down and I thought the body was laying. It's gotta be, it's the exact same design. And, oh, tell me, I don't even have a number on this one. Is this it? Filled with trash again, and a broken window, and a locked door. Oh, I hope that this nicer looking one up here. They have a whole sign to them. They wouldn't just leave it. Ah, this looks promising. I hear people, I think. Or it's just the echoes. No, this is it. Amenhotep II. Okay, well, better, I guess, in condition than the last one I just saw. But again, locked. KV35. II. Oh. No key. Oh. Why is it locked? You saw the pictures. It was the only one here with a design, with a sign. There's a bird box, more trash. There's a random hole. Probably goes down in. I could sneak into these, maybe. Oh, wow. Who knows? Probably recessed lighting for the tourists. But there's this really trashy one right here that's broken. And then there's this whole shade and a sign for Amenhotep II. And not many of them have these signs. So you'd think if it's important like this for the tourists, that it would be important enough to be open, but it is not. So you'll have to watch a video. Many more places to explore. Let's get back to the bus.
Instead of the usual layout we know, no, 3 terraces above each other, and it's a rock-cut temple. Ramesses II later, I would say 200 years later, also on that obelisk, the surviving one, I'm erecting the twins in an overnight. 6 out of which are American, 2 Canadian, 3 French. There is a British one as well. So, my professor, Dr. Zahid Hawass, the guy always with the Texas hat, He discovered a major discovery a couple of years ago here. The so-called Golden City. It's, I would say, mud brick, and they used to have spend their vacation on the other side of the line. I'm still talking about, we are all still talking about Howard Carter, for God's sake, at this very moment. And when I mean talking about Howard Carter for hundreds or maybe thousands of years ago. On my hand with any of the vultures, $3-4 at that seat. To the left-hand side, ladies and gentlemen, this is the proof. Those arches are the proof that the Egyptians used arches at least 1,200 years before the Romans. Of course they did. Before we have discovered those arches, we used to believe that they were the Romans. Yeah, it was. Were the first to use arches in their buildings. This is the only proof, ladies and gentlemen, that the...
Joseph, you know Joseph?
Yeah, of course.
They talked about this. They stored the grain for 7 years. Have they ever found any archaeology of how they stored the grain? No.
We had the name of Joseph in one of the papyrus rolls discovered.
To get a farm deed to be a pharmacist. I said, did you? And he said, no, I was only 4 or 5 when I went through. He said, you work at Walmart or Kmart? I said, no, I had my own pharmacy here in Kansas City. And I said, you know, Spokane called Gonzaga, and I said, what'd you do during the war? And he said, oh, I was a pilot. And I thought, wow, if you were a pilot during World War II, you were a Tuskegee Airman if you're a black man. And so I was getting a little skeptical here at this point, and I said, well, what'd you find? He said, P-51 Mustang. And I said, where were you stationed? He said, Aviano, Italy.
Europe, yeah.
Yeah, and I said, what was your squadron? It was 330 something, I don't know what it was. And so I go back to my room and I Google it, and boom, 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 it all.
Yeah, but up there, those A-10s would come in low. They weren't flying high at all. They were down low. Yeah. And when they came over you, you said, thank you. We're safe.
That's what they were saying. They took the brunt of. Took a licking and kept on ticking.
Hell yeah. The pilot is sitting in a titanium bathtub, essentially. There ain't nothing getting through to the pilot. And everything on the A-10 is redundant. You can get an engine shot out, it flies on one engine. Shoots up anything in the fuselage, there's another.
When you're out to sea, this is how they come and shop with you. They attach themselves to the side of the window. They get up real close and they throw the goods to you up to the top. And then after they've thrown the goods, after they've displayed it, see, they're showing everybody up top. Isn't it nice? Don't you want it? I'll throw it up to you. Yes. Yes. They'll put it in a bag and toss it to them. And then they'll ask you for the money. Oh, he's not even going to put it in a bag. Oh, maybe. He's going to put it in a bag and throw it. Oh, wow. All right. Good catch. Now you're just trusting that you get the money for it. Otherwise. That's amazing. And anywhere else in the world, this would be like pirating, I guess, but people are really good about, really serious about selling products to rich tourists. These guys are getting swamped in the back of their boat. This is incredible. Oh man. They said this would happen. I just didn't know how serious they were. They got some good balance. Throwing these blankets up and scarves. Oh, Nile, you do not cease to amaze me, and people in general. Nile River. The Nile is nothing without Egypt, and Egypt is nothing without the Nile.
You talking to me or to yourself?
To myself,
Okay.
and this video. You can't tell, but there is a sheen of soap and oil across the top of the river. There is...
I'm hard of hearing and she talks to herself, so you can appreciate the dynamics there.
trash all through the river. As scenic or pretty as it may seem, we are in Esna. The salesmen are hard at work on the side of the ship, selling their wares to the higher class balcony folks, or the people up top where they can throw it. And I will follow this video with some photos of the town of Esna and just kind of the sad story that is Egypt as a whole right now. The Nubian village, west side of the Nile, and the dam, one of them, the old British dam, if you can see that in the distance there, in the dust storm, just continually dusty. We came up by boat from Greater Aswan on the east side, way down there, about 40 minutes north, downriver north. And now we're gonna go check out the crocodile farm and the shop market. You can see some of the shops and the markets on the street level underneath all of these houses here.
Hallo! Shut the news!
Everybody else and now all the other people. Hello, 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 hello. Maybe. Hello, hello.
Did they give you briefings about that kind of stuff?
They did, yeah. The kind of the cultural differences and. But. Oh no. Hello, hello.
Hello.
But it's hard to tell, you know, who's an extremist and hello, hello.
You know, Vietnam, that was the thing. There was such atrocities done because people didn't know if the little kid was going to blow you up.
That was, yeah.
Exactly.
Hello, hello.
When the sea beach felt fog, you had different barriers, you know,
on the side.
One of those Tesco's, you fill up one of those Tesco's full of rocks, it gives you instant walls.
It's like the alligator. I know. It's so wild. But they have the big light right here. You see? They're doing like photos and cameras. The big light on the side. They're taking photos. It's like a big holiday. Like, come get your Christmas photos. The what?
Are we still on eyes?
Eat? Yeah. It's like Mardi Gras. Yeah, basically. Except you also like the little tuk-tuk. You can ride the tuk-tuk over there if you want. We'll go inside. So you gotta dance now. You gotta start dancing now.
Is that a hookah? What do they call it?
What? Oh, the hookah?
Hookah?
Yeah, like the.
What is it?
Like it could be like a drug, narcotic. It could be. A lot of it is mostly weed or tobacco. A lot of times just tobacco. Here's the view.
I did get a picture of that.
Okay. I'll go down.